All right. Well, welcome back. Week three, blue collar breakdown. Alan, how was your weekend? Did you enjoy some football?
Yeah, good weather, good football, especially on the college side. You called it. There's going to be upset week, and there were some upsets, but there's some upsets in NFL too that surprised me. But any given Sunday, you have that saying. Um,
Yeah.
any games you saw like on live TV, like because
Yeah.
I
So,
have different channels, but yeah,
yeah. So, not week two, but week one, ending off, we hadn't seen the Jets game last week.
right.
And I'd like to start by saying, Alan, I told you that
You
quarterback battle. I told you that quarterback battle. It was right there.
you mean between Allen and Wilson,
I was talking Rodgers and Wilson.
Rogers? What
Yeah.
he got hurt. That's just an unfortunate thing. You did say that Wilson might play, and he did.
I, Alan, I told you he'd be playing before the end of the season.
Well, it was at the start, so 4 plays in, and that's
Take
gotta
it to
be
the
that's
bank.
gotta be tough for the fans just to see that chemistry from that quarter. It seemed like they were hitting it off, and then just
Yeah.
all crashing down. And I mean, it's still a
Well,
long season to go, but their hopes got to be a little shattered a little bit.
yeah. Well, and that's a risk you run. Yeah, veterans are great because they know what's going on. They understand the flow of the game. They understand situations, but you run the risk of injury. And we're seeing that honestly throughout the league pretty early this year. I mean, Kelsey's out himself too. So,
Yeah, he was out week 1, yes.
yeah, a lot of
And
these
even in
veterans
his
understand.
second game, he didn't. I watched that game, Jaguars Chiefs,
Yeah.
and still didn't look the same. So I'm sure he's not so 100%.
Yeah.
But the Jets
Yes.
defense were flying on Monday night. 3 picks on good old Josh Allen there.
Yeah. Yeah. And Zach still got it closed out though.
Yeah,
And
so
you got
he
to tip the
he
cap.
played how he had to play.
Uh-huh.
He was. We haven't seen him play that good in a while. So give him credit where credit's due. Um,
Yeah.
and tonight
Yeah. Well,
tonight there's 2 Monday night games. If you didn't know. Steelers and Browns, and funny enough, Steelers are favorites in that one. But and then Panthers and Saints, that'll be interesting. But yeah, good
yeah.
and good way to end Monday night on a punt return for for the walk off win. So for the Jets
Which
after Monday night, you
which game
probably
was
were
that?
feeling good. What
Which game are you referencing for the walk
the
off?
Bills and Jets Monday night?
Oh, yep. Last week. Yep,
Yeah,
week one.
yeah,
Yep.
week 1. Um, But then moving forward to the Jets, would probably they're all high on spirits. I'm sure they were, but they ran into a brick wall. Let's just say that. They ran into a brick wall in the Cowboys, and I know they say this every year. Fans are, but from an outside perspective, I think they're the real deal. I
The
think they're the
Cowboys?
real. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Their
But if you
defense,
ask
Micah
Steven,
Parsons, is this unbelievably good, and he might be
yeah,
the
well,
best player pound for pound in the league right now. So
absolutely any position. But if you ask Stephen A's take, he's going to say that Dak isn't the quarterback to get it done for him. However, I think they have a strong enough team that they wouldn't need to rely on the quarterback
right,
position. I
I heard
think they are. Go ahead.
I heard the exact same thing a radio announcer the broadcaster say. They're putting Dak in situations where he doesn't have to, be risky with the ball. Like, so
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of interesting to see because every every game of football I've ever watched, the quarterback is either the hero or the villain. I mean, he's either going to lead his team to victory or he's going to be the reason they fail. And honestly, I don't think that's the case with Dallas. I think he is literally playing a position that is a role position, not a difference maker, which is really odd to see from a very successful team such
right,
as Dallas.
right. Well, we'll see when they actually get in a tough matchup. I mean, the Jets and Giants, let's be honest, aren't the best teams in the league. Um, but it happens every year. We see the Cowboys do phenomenal in the regular season. I don't know about this dominant of a performance though on their defense. So
Mhm.
with Trayvon Diggs as well, um,
Mhm.
that defense just flies. Is I mean, they got to be the best defense in the league right now, as of now. But
Oh yeah,
I think
far and
there's
away.
another team that I would pick over them right now. But Cowboys dominated with a 30-10 win, I believe. Let me check that.
Yep,
Yep, 30-10
yep,
lead.
yep.
Um,
Dallas has outscored New York teams 70-10 in the first 2 weeks. Pretty crazy.
that's crazy. And speaking of the Giants, 6 quarters without scoring. Like you don't see that. You just don't see that in the NFL. And
That's a dry run. Well, what are you guys gonna do without Saquon? He
I
was your
don't.
entire team.
I know, but they said it's a lower sprain, and apparently that's like the better option of the two between a lower and high ankle sprain. I'm not a doctor. I don't know, but that's what they're saying. Um,
Yeah, I did hear the outlook was looking up. But
yeah.
on the topic of injuries, I feel like we didn't really get too much into it with Rodgers. But did you hear his Achilles tear? Did you hear how he went about it?
I'm not sure, but I know he's doing a procedure that quickens the rehabilitation process, but that's all I know.
Yeah, so he actually went to have it surgically reattached, and he's going through the same surgery, or already went through the same surgery
Yeah.
that Kobe Bryant went through. And so they were talking about, well, in that season, Kobe came back after his tear. And so they're asking, they asked Rodgers, and he said, well, anything's possible. However, basketball and football are two different
Oh,
sports.
100%.
You
100%.
don't, yeah, you're not taking,
Hit
15
after
shots a
hits.
game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, direct contact from a 300-pound lineman, 300
Right.
plus pound lineman. You know, it's not basketball is probably easier to get back from. You're more of the cardio side of things,
Right. Right.
uh, not high impact. So I think you're comparing apples to oranges. So let's flip the script here. Let's say worst case scenario. Let's say it's not feasible for him to come back. Alan, do you think Aaron Rodgers comes back next season?
Oh yeah, I do. I believe him when he says he will. Um, and I want to see him and the Jets be successful. Maybe not a Super Bowl. That's too early. But I just want to see him succeed. I just like anyone to succeed, really. Um,
Mhm.
and we see people on Twitter and Instagram do their hot takes. I say hot takes, but they clearly have never been on a football field, even on a high school level. So, um, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, it is. I don't think he'll be back this year. That's a bit optimistic, but
Hmm.
and if I were the Jets, I would be looking at the future with no Wilson. I mean, I don't think he's the answer. I'm gonna be honest; he's not the answer. So
Yeah,
either they
he did.
find a veteran or draft someone. I don't think Caleb Williams will be available for the Jets, so I don't think the Jets are the worst team. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, we already talked about his quote of if it's not a favorable team, he'll go back to college for another year.
and that's
So,
that's smart by him. So
I mean, I get it, but at the same time, that doesn't show your willingness to be a team player from the jump. I mean,
right,
if it's not your conditions, your terms, you're not going to play. That's pretty poor. And these guys are spending millions of dollars, and the only thing that you have to put up with is where you land. And even that they're affecting now. I mean, I guess that's gone back to, the days of Bo Jackson and John Elway. They both had says in what they were doing, but, you know,
yeah, and they had baseball. Bo Jackson had baseball too as the back ons if it didn't go
so
his
did
way.
Elway.
So yep.
Yeah, Elway had that too. Did you hear that's what the situation was when he was drafted?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, so for the listeners who don't know, essentially Elway, he was told he was going to get picked up by, who was it, Alan? It was a really poor performing team at the time.
I don't remember.
Anyway, they came to him and they said, "We're going to take your first pick overall." And he came back and said, "You take me, you're going to waste my pick. You waste your pick on me. I'll just go play baseball." And I don't know. it just rubs me the wrong way.
I get it. I mean, same situation happened with Eli too, but it
Mhm.
worked out in the end. I mean, Philip Rivers went to the Chargers, Eli went with the Giants, and it was perfect fit for both teams. So I'm sure they're not too worried about when that
Yeah,
happened. So, um,
yeah. Well, and I get wanting to be in a system or a style that you fit into.
right,
That should be conveyed to the coach and let the coach make the assessment. It shouldn't be because of lack of success. If somebody's trying to turn a leaf and put you at the helm, you know, you should step up and be a captain, be a first pick overall or first round pick anyway, and act like it. That's what first round picks do. They change a team's culture. And if you're not willing to do that, I don't think you're a first round pick anyway. But
right.
anyway,
Um,
hard tangent.
yeah, that's fine. And on the New York side, I mean, as I said, 6 quarters without scoring, and I thought it would be another one of those blowouts, but something just clicked in the New York Giants, and it just brought that back down 20 to nothing. I think at one point, 131 to 28. I mean, I don't know why they just decided to play football or what was wrong. I mean, Saquon still looked good until that injury, but we're getting Darren Waller more of the ball, the tight end we picked up from Raiders. Um, but maybe this is the clicking point where they just get back on track when they let last year. So, but they're in a really
Yeah.
tough division where everyone's playing good. The Washington Commanders are playing good. Dallas, obviously, probably the best in the division right now, and then the Eagles. Um, so they're the best division in football last year, and they'll be again this year. So, um,
Yeah.
but
Very good.
as a Cardinals fan, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, but you got to be happy with Josh Dobbs. He did play really good in the first half. And you can't blame it all on Josh Dobbs in the second half. I mean, the play. I mean, that was just a team effort loss right there. So, um,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
speaking of high-powered defenses, I've seen that Niners and Rams game, and I'm just ecstatic that Brock Purdy's just picking up where he left off. I that's just really awesome. And then Fred Warner and Nick Bosa on the other side are just tearing it up,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. That team's coming together really nicely. They're putting all the pieces in place, and we haven't even seen them hit full stride yet. I mean, Purdy, I think he was actually more reserved than what we've seen him.
Right,
I
I
haven't
don't think
seen
he had a
him.
touchdown. I don't think.
Yeah, nope. He was 17 for 25 with a little over 200 yards. But I mean, we haven't seen his wheels yet. He's not even getting out of the pocket and running like he normally does. He had 3 carries for 5 yards, and Brock is insanely athletic. I hope that's not a permanent change that the Niners are moving towards to keep him in the pocket. But I remember last season that's what his X factor was.
Right, right. And the Rams are no slouch either. I mean, they were slouches last year, but they seem to be on different wavelength this year. So they played a good
Yeah,
team, and so um,
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
Stafford
and
is getting old, but they found a pretty good receiver. I'm sorry, but well, I forgot his name, Nakua or something. The other receiver in for Cooper Cup, but he's playing lights out right now. So
Puka Nakua, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yep, yep. And then there was Tutu Atwell too. He played
Oh
lights
yeah, I've
out.
seen him. Yeah,
Yeah. So they're finding depth on their team. And with Cooper Cup being out, that's a team that hasn't hit their full potential yet either. And that's going to come full circle. They're going to be two teams to really have a tough battle with any team
right,
later down the stretch. But still putting pieces in place. I mean, this is only week 2, so we got a lot of football ahead of us.
right. And then speaking of putting pieces in place, it's just weird to see the Bengals again have this slow start with Burrow. I mean, he's a top 3 quarterback in my opinion. And it's just kind of alarming how slow it is. I mean, it was alarming last year, but they obviously turned it around and were a few plays from the going to the Super Bowl. But
Mhm.
this feels a little different than last year. I don't know. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and stagnant.
yeah,
Go
stagnant
ahead.
is definitely play. I mean, they had 633 yards of offense in the first half. I mean, you're not
Yeah,
gonna. That's tough to, especially against good teams like the Ravens. You can't have that. Can't have that. But I'm not too worried about it. They turned around last year. Maybe they'll turn it around this year. So, um,
yeah, yeah. Well, and Burrow, I think he's not feeling comfortable in the pocket. I mean, he went
I
27 for 41 for 222 yards with two touchdowns and a pick. So he's a composed quarterback, and to see him out of sorts this early in the season, it's pretty. Like you said, it's unprecedented. It's not the Burrow we've seen, even of Burrow of college. I mean, this is the side of him we're getting to see that's different. But
right, but that they need help on that old line to help them. Let's also address that because I mean last year he faced that too and he was phenomenal. I mean you don't want to blitz Burrow, but they need some help. I think fast on that O line to help them out. So I
yeah,
think they'll turn it
no,
around. I think they'll be fine. So
yeah, yeah, they've got a lot of weeks to play ahead. So yeah, we'll
um,
see if they get it together.
right, I do. The Bengals are fun to watch when they hit in stride. So and they're one
Yeah,
of them snake bitten franchises that haven't won a Super Bowl yet. So I don't think it'll be
yeah,
this year, but speaking of snake bitten franchises, let's talk about that Lions and your Seahawks game. Whew. I mean,
yeah.
Lions look good, but Seahawks, wow. Let's just say that. Wow. Your thoughts. Your thoughts.
I think that week one was a wake up call for the Seahawks. I think that they realize they're going to have to step up and play different than they did last year. I think with Gino coming in, filling the role of Russ last year,
Right.
no game film on him. He was something new, something different. Guys didn't know how to play him on defense, and so now at this point, people are starting to find his tendencies. They're starting to figure out where he's going, what he's doing. And honestly, I mean, Seattle must have confidence in him, letting him pass for 41 times in a game. I mean,
Right.
no picks, two touchdowns. I think he's getting it together. I honestly, last year when they said Geno Smith was the backup quarterback, he was who's going to fill Russ's shoes. I thought that'll get him through to the end of the season. They're going to get a terrible finish to a season, and his replacement's going to get picked up. I would not have, in any situation or any world, I would have guessed that Gino would be their guy at this point, playing this well.
Right. I don't think anyone, to be honest. I mean, his stint with the Jets was forgettable. I mean, let's be honest. And then I think he got punched in the jaw by his teammate there, if I'm not mistaken. So
When was that?
when he was with the Jets, I think he got
Mm-hmm.
punched there. But good for him though, playing last year how he played, and then continuing this year, especially against a very hot Lions team. I don't know
Yeah.
why people are just not looking at this Lions team. Maybe they are now, but they finished 7-1 last year. They finished the season 7-1. So
Mm-hmm.
and Jared Goff
Yeah.
is right back like Geno Smith. I mean, Jared Goff had more success early with the Rams' high-powered offense. Then he kind of stagnated and then went to the Lions, and now he's kind of back to his old form. So good for him. I mean,
Yeah.
tough loss for the Lions, but that's a game they should have had. So, but Seattle won it. I mean, their defense stepped
Yeah.
up with a pick six, I believe, from Jared Goff. So Kenneth Walker
Mm-hmm.
playing good too. So,
Mm-hmm.
and speaking of playing good, or I'm opposite, not good. Like again, the Chargers find themselves losing these close games, and I'm just kind of getting tired of it. To be honest with you, I'm not even a Chargers fan, but it just seems like now they're the Nebraska. Pardon me, but they're the
Oh,
Nebraska of the NFL now.
I can't even knock you for that, Alan. Nebraska is infamous for the inability to win coming down the stretch. But yeah, no, I would say Chargers, for whatever reason, they hear footsteps in the fourth quarter and they just don't know how to finish. I mean, that's where your veterans step in. And, talking about the trade offs of having veterans on your team, veterans know how to win.
Right.
and they replicate wins, and that's what you have veterans on your team for. And you know, you step up when you need to, and obviously, Chargers just don't have those guys.
No, they don't. But it also, and Tennessee also proved me wrong. I thought they were gonna be a little down year, but Tannehill pulled through, and they just need to find more offensive options than just handing it to Henry. Everyone knows you're gonna hand it to Henry. That's why you kind of
Mhm.
need to be more flexible. I know Tannehill isn't the greatest. He ain't a running quarterback, but he's been playing good. Last year was kind of off year, but again,
Yeah,
Chargers just like you said, fourth quarter hits, and even though they scored 10 points in the fourth quarter, I mean, you still can't allow them to score 10, 7, 7, 3 straight periods, so quarters. So
yeah,
yeah,
definitely,
it's just a shot in
definitely
the
need some
foot for
guys.
them. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But if we're on the topic of quarterbacks, Alan,
yeah.
I gotta tell you, there was two quarterbacks that really impressed me this last week.
From week
You
two
want
or
to take a
week
guess?
one?
Week two. You want to take a
This
guess?
is one of them. Your boy Russell.
No, Russ
No.
played well, but I know he can play to that ability. These two, I'm gonna say, they're starting to show pretty good form.
Is one of them Baker Mayfield?
No.
No, but they did win 27-17 over the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's
Nope.
Josh
Nope.
Allen because Josh Allen just looked like his old self, winning 38-10.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Nope.
I mean Tua, is it Tua?
Tua Tagovailoa, that kid is a stud.
And who's
I'm
your other
impressed, man.
one?
I don't think you'll guess this one, Alan.
Is it Ritter from Falcons?
Nope.
Really? Kirk Cousins.
Nope. Man, you're gonna guess everybody else in the league.
That's weird. But speaking of Kirk Cousins, again, he gets to blame for having an outstanding performance, but his defense just I don't get that. Vikings fans are weird. Um, is it that Washington guy, Howell?
Nope.
Really?
Man, you go all the way around late. You
Is
want me
it
to
the
tell you?
NFL? Is it an NFL?
It's the
Obviously.
NFL, man. Yeah.
It can't be Stafford.
No.
Mac Jones.
No.
Did they win?
Huh?
Did they win?
Yeah, they won.
They won.
What a good one. It was by more than 10 points.
More than 10 points? Gardner Minshew?
Minshew. Minshew mania, baby.
Is it back, you
Gardner
think?
Minshew. Gosh, I
He
hope
did
so.
play good.
He did play
Oh,
really
wow.
well.
CJ Stroud played really good.
Yeah. I'm telling you,
384,
man.
dude. But yeah, Minshew,
Wow.
really high, really accurate with the ball, stepping in.
Yeah. Well, and where even a couple years in the league, he thought he was going to step away. He thought he was going to be done. And coming back and being as efficient with the ball as he's been, I feel like that's not something you see. You usually see a guy who comes in and make mistakes. They're not, they're obviously dynamic players. They're professional athletes, but you don't see that poise in the pocket that you're looking for. And I thought Minshew had it. I mean, he didn't really, he wasn't earth-shattering stats, but I
Right.
was impressed with the composure that he had.
And that's what he brings to the Colts. I mean, they've been struggling with quarterbacks with Carson Wentz. He played good, but he just didn't protect the ball when he needed to. And then Matt
Mhm.
Ryan last year, he was just too old. Now
Mhm.
they're putting their future in Anthony Richardson, but the problem with him is he just doesn't slide. And I think we might just see another Robert Griffin III situation here, where he just
Mhm.
gets hurt. But it didn't look
Mhm.
that horrible of a hit, so but I just like to see him slide. But yeah, Gardner Minshew been there, done that. I mean, after Minshew magic, he kind of fell a little bit, but he was back in the form on Sunday. So
Yeah. So I'm excited to see what his future looks like there. I hope he's their guy. I hope that's where they're going, and I hope they see what they need to see from him. But I guess we'll see.
and I did another game. Uh, Impressive on the defensive side is the Chiefs and Jaguars. I mean, Chiefs are kind of, I wouldn't say stagnant, but they're still very young receiving group. They don't have the Smith Schusters of the world anymore. They don't have McCall Hardman anymore, who is his deep threat, or one of his deep threats. They basically just have Kelsey, and that's it. And these other ones aren't proven. Sky Moore isn't proven. They got a new receiver from SMU, Rice. Obviously he's a rookie. He's not proven yet. But you can see having Kelsey not only helps Mahomes have a reliable target, but he makes other people open. I mean, and while it was an earth-shattering 500 yards we see from the Chiefs' offense, you could see a little more of that trust Mahomes has with, let's say, Tony, who had like 4 drops last game. I don't think he dropped any. I don't believe he dropped any today. And receivers picked that up. They still got ways to go, but they started slow last year. I'm not too worried. It's Mahomes, so. And on the defensive side with Chris Jones, he looked fresh. Like, obviously he was putting time while being away for that new contract, and he just dominated that line and gave Lawrence trouble all day. And what I noticed the whole game, still on the defense for the Chiefs, is their coverage in the end zone is pretty good, because there was 4 times where the Jaguars could have had a catch or a touchdown in end zone, but they were always 1 foot away. I don't know. They just don't have that feet like Hopkins has or Randy Moss has to quickly tap that second foot in, but they were always that close from this game being very different. So
Yeah. Well, and if you want to talk about games that were inches away, that Eagles-Vikings game, that entire game, that was the comedy of errors we seen. It was just consistently, fingertip misses. It was not dragging the toes, things like that. You just wanted to see go the other way. And have the conversation, the Vikings have 6 turnovers in 6 quarters, so you obviously got to get that cleaned up. But I think Kirk Cousins' composure is bar none.
I
I don't
can't.
think
Yeah,
any.
I
I don't
agree.
think anybody else in the league would want that job. Nobody else would want to be the most hit quarterback in the league. And if you watch when Cousins comes off, he's never yelling at his own line. He may be frustrated. He's frustrated with himself. It's never passing the buck.
Right.
He realizes what he brings to the table and what he can affect. And we've seen 4 touchdown passes from him, 364 yards. This is somebody who is in a loss, putting up numbers like that.
Yeah, but
And again,
again, it's his fault though, right? It's his fault.
right. Well, that's what he's gonna say.
Yeah.
He'll be the first one to claim the blame, but it's not well placed within him.
Right.
Obviously, that line needs to figure it out.
Right. It's just like the Burrow too, and we're seeing it more with Cousins this year. He just doesn't have the time. I mean, I know you got to get the ball out, but like getting hit almost not even like 2 seconds is just not something that I don't know why fans think it's Cousins' fault, but the fans
Yeah,
will be fans, I guess. So,
yeah.
and it doesn't
Well, and
help.
we're. Seeing,
Yeah, you go.
I was just gonna say we're seeing a dynamic shift of ability um, throughout the league, where it used to be offensive line driven. I mean, offensive line used to hold it down, but
Right.
now with the new stunts and blitzes and the sheer athletic ability on the defensive side of the ball, this is a different kind of football. These quarterbacks are having to roll out of the pocket, and that's why we're seeing more of the Michael Vick, Russell Wilson style of
Jalen
out of the pocket
Hurts.
passers. Yep,
Yeah,
out of the
Mahomes.
pocket
So,
passers.
yeah.
Exactly. Yep. So that's something where Cousins is an old style quarterback. He's a pocket passer. He's not. He's between the tackles,
Right. He's
and
very good at it. Very good at it.
very good. Yeah, well composed. I'm sorry. What was your tangent though?
It's going off with your how defenses are getting fast, and we're not seeing the old line style. Some teams are still sticking to that old style. I mean, Eagles one of them. They have one of the best old lines. Lions have one of the best old lines. But that Thursday night, they could have had 300 yards rushing if they really wanted to. Like, holy crap, you don't see this 48 carries
Mm.
for 259 yards. That's just unheard of. Listen, I mean, maybe
Yeah.
Derrick Henry pops one against the Jaguars sometimes, 200 yards, but that, I
Yeah.
mean, Eagles are firing like they were last year. I'll be interested to see that Eagles Cowboys. First time I would ever say that. Watching Eagles Cowboys and be interested in it as a Giants fan.
But on your point of old style quarterbacks, I mean, or old style offensive lines anyway.
Right.
Jalen Hurts is still within the realms of a new quarterback, a
Oh
new
yeah.
style of quarterback. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, he had more rushing touchdowns than he did passing. So he's out of the pocket. I mean, he keeps the defense honest, keeps them on their toes. So
That's just a headache for defensive coordinators, I can imagine.
yeah, yeah, you have to put a quarterback spy on him, and that sucks up a whole linebacker, and you know,
And it just
just
opens up
nightmare
more opens up more opportunity for tight ends.
downfield.
Yeah,
Yep,
especially with
yep,
tight ends like Goddard from SDSU playing on that Eagles, like just gonna wreck through you.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
yep. Goddard played well.
it was a
He
good
had
week
six
of
catches.
yeah, you did. Yeah, a good week of football NFL wise. Not too many blowouts. To be honest, I thought Commanders gonna blow them out, and I should have watched that fourth quarter because I missed that Broncos last second touchdown. But
Mm,
overall, pretty good weekend of football. I mean, unless you're a Cardinals fan,
yeah,
but I mean,
yeah,
or
that's a rough
Bengals
go.
fan, but I'm sure it'll be all right. It's the second week. Um,
Mm,
but let's, I mean, we're not doing predictions yet, but if I had to do a way too, like if the Super Bowl is tomorrow or this week, I I would be interested to see a 49ers Dolphins. I think that would be a
mm,
really fun watch. Purdy, the Mr. Irrelevant versus national championship at Bama, Tua Tagovailoa. Oof,
mm,
I think that'd be
mm,
interesting. And hopefully Kyle
mm,
Shanahan doesn't blow that lead again. So,
yeah,
but overall good. But I think
yeah,
the main hitting point was upset weekend for college. If you want
yeah.
to
No.
start with that.
All right, so we have to talk about the inevitable, and I'm gonna give it 2 minutes tops, and then we got to move on because it's been talked about
Way too much.
way too much.
All right,
Colorado.
Colorado, and
I, I think every angle's been exhausted. So, what's your take?
I'm just happy that it was a good game. I thought it was
Mhm.
going to be a blowout, but Colorado State proved a lot of people wrong, and they just came
Well,
out firing. So,
yeah, and to be honest, I think it's more telling of exactly what we had said the week prior, Alan. I think it was more telling that Colorado is playing the part of a top 25 team, but they do not belong in the top 10. And, you've notched wins over TCU, who's no longer ranked, Nebraska, who
yeah, we know.
shouldn't have put up. Yeah, we understand
Nebraska's
that.
Nebraska.
Yeah, and then Colorado State taking it down to the wire.
Right.
And especially where there was so much hype around this game. I know everybody's tipping the cap to Dion, and they're patting him on the back saying, "Oh, he's the next big thing." But really, you get College Game Day, 60 Minutes, the Pat McAfee show, everything at your front doorstep, and you take it down to the wire with Colorado State. That's the best of your coaching ability. That is prime form for your team.
Hey,
You
it's
telling me he's the
rivalry.
real
It's a
deal?
rivalry game. I mean,
I don't
it's a
care.
rivalry
I'll be
game.
honest. If you are a national title contender, you better play like a national title contender. I don't.
I don't think anyone thinks they're a national title contender. I don't even
Uh,
think maybe they do,
uh,
but I don't think anyone else outside of Colorado thinks they are. And we'll
there's
see.
analysts.
We'll see this week against Oregon. We'll see.
And my honest take on that one is it's going to be an offensive shootout. I think it's going to go down to the wire. But I honestly don't think Colorado's down and out at any point in that game. I don't think that they're going to be counted out at any point, especially with how Oregon's played the past few weeks, where their defense it's pretty lackluster. They've given up over 40 points. They're darn near 50 points to Portland State, Texas Tech, and Hawaii.
Right.
So obviously, obviously holes in both defenses. That might be one of the highest scoring. That I would say put this down. If you're going to bet Vegas odds on anything, Alan, that is your best bet for the highest scoring game in college football for the 2023 season.
Oh, for the whole year, not just this week, this whole year.
Oh, whole year.
Shadur Sanders
only,
versus Bo Nix. Interesting. Be very interesting.
We're talking lackluster defenses versus dynamic offenses. Yep. So I guess we'll see. I mean, put it on your calendar. That's my hot take. We'll see how that goes. But any last thoughts or comments on that before we wrap that topic?
To be honest, that's all. I mean, glad it was a good game. Move on to next week. That's really, like you said, it's been beaten down like a, I don't know, like linemen going on a buffet. So, well, that's done. So let's get into some of those interesting games, and let's go with one of your teams that you were looking out for the year, Tennessee. Oof.
Well, okay. Let's take a step back. What's in the water in Florida? What is in the water in Florida right now? You got Florida State.
Yeah.
And out of their minds. Admittedly, they could have played a little better this last week, but
we'll get to
nonetheless,
them. We'll get to them.
Yeah. You got Miami inside the top 25, and the Gators have more than proven that they deserve to be in the top 25. Yes, they have one loss on the record. However, you play with the best in the country.
And they 20 points in the second quarter. I mean, enough said. I mean, I believe they are ranked 25 this week, so they got in there. But I think they are better than Iowa. I'm be honest, but Tennessee just.
Iowa, hey. Well, I will put 41 up, man.
I'm not a believer in Iowa, so no hate against them. I just don't think they're that great, but we'll see.
You don't like parents?
But no. But Florida proving that they should not be overlooked, and I'm just quite surprised Tennessee can only put up 16.
Yeah.
But I did like what I saw from Florida. Sorry, but I don't know if you remember Travis Etienne from Clemson days with Trevor Lawrence. His brother plays for Florida Gators, and I think he took everything he learned from his brother and applied it because he has that control, center of bounds control when he gets hit. He doesn't go down easy, so I think that's a player. I don't think he's a Heisman, but that's a player on Florida that should be kept an eye on.
Yeah, I agree.
And going to Florida State.
Whoa! Let's roll back. There's another game I want to talk about. If we're bashing my teams that I had picked, Al.
Yeah.
Are you gonna admit it?
Which team?
Is there a chink in Georgia's armor?
No. And I'll say this again, like I'll say again last year when I got bored of college football because I knew Georgia's just going to run it down everyone's throat. And I'll say it again this year. They're my number one. I will get to that segment, but obviously they're my number one, and I've said it many times. Could be a close game, could be a blowout. Until they lose, they're number one. And this is a good game for Georgia. They get those cracks in the armor. They get those mistakes, and they'll clear them up. I think this is going to scare NCAA and any football team that plays them because they're just going to get better. I think.
This is a 1-2 South Carolina team, Alan. They are a 2-loss team now that took it down to the wire. I mean, they were up 14-3 at half.
But South Carolina didn't do nothing after that.
The same. Yes. Right, so your defense got it figured out. But your defense had answers for Georgia. We are talking about an unranked team holding Georgia to 3 points in the first half.
That's fine.
The first half. That's not a quarter.
We saw this last year, too. Someone did it to them that last year, too. Same thing. Undisputed champions of college football, so. Until they lose, they're number one. Clear.
Alan.
Clear as day. Can't convince me otherwise.
Are you aware that there is only one other team that scored less than a touchdown in the first half inside the top 10?
No.
You know who that other team is?
Mm-mm.
Alabama.
Right. They look flat. they they need to figure that quarterback thing out. I think there's a little panic to get Milrose out. So
Mm-hmm.
I think Milrose played okay against Texas, but I think people aren't giving enough credit to Texas defense as they should because they're just playing ball right now. Um,
Oh,
Texas did look.
well,
Texas did look. We're jumping a lot, but Texas D knows how to play. So
yeah. Well, and I think we kind of have to jump around a lot with how this week is gone. I
right.
remember I was sitting in Memorial Stadium looking at the scores around the stadium as it's going on, and literally every game that I was looking at, I was watching on my phone. I'm looking at stats. I'm like, this is unreal. There is nobody inside the top 10 that is really showing that, they're full form. They're here the best of their abilities. There was not a single game inside the top 10. I take that back. There was one. Ohio State showed up, showed out, played well,
Washington did
beat
too.
Western. I guess you're right. Washington played real well
But I
too.
get what you mean,
But
though. I think a lot of these top 10 games had very slow starts. Um,
yeah.
Michigan had a slow start, but they rushed their way out of that game. But Florida State, I watched that game, and the story of the game doesn't indicate what the scoreboard is because Boston College had 18 penalties, and they only lost by 3. Like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, Florida State's coach got to be very keen on that. Like, this team should have won. Boston College probably should have won,
Mm-hmm.
but
They were they were the better prepared team for
right.
sure.
And again, the well-disciplined team won it. Florida State did. You're 10 penalties in the first half. Like,
Mm.
it's just wow. But the way they kept that close, I mean, Florida State's gone out of my top 4. So, um, like you said, Ohio State got the job done. Texas slow start, but they pulled out 21 points in the fourth quarter. Penn
Mm-hmm.
State dominant. Notre Dame
Mm-hmm.
dominant. Bama, we touched on that. Utah pretty good. Oregon 55-10, so they're kind of back in the groove. But big test next
Mm-hmm.
week. LSU picked off where they left off, 41-14. And
Yeah.
another upset, Missouri over Kansas State. I watched that game too.
That's a
Wow,
rivalry game.
it
Yeah.
is, and it kind of sucks because I'm a I'm gonna say I'm a Kent State fan, but I do like their coach because he's from North Dakota State. That last sequence, I don't know if you watched the game, but that you were at,
61 yarder.
yeah. But the weird thing is, they could have had a 56-yarder, but then they got a penalty, and this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. So they got the first down, right? They clocked the
Mm-hmm.
ball, right? I don't think they had any
Mm-hmm.
timeouts. Then they went over to the sidelines, their offense, like they did have a timeout, and it just stood there, and it just got flagged for it. That was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. And
Mm.
you could see Coach Kleiman, who's the Kansas City coach, just trying to keep his men cool so they don't notice and stuff, and to still kick a 61-yarder, and it was no doubter too. So, um, kickers are getting
Mm-hmm.
good. We're seeing a lot
Yeah,
more kickers than good. So,
61 yards is pretty unreal for
college too.
college football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh, but
Oklahoma again beating on a poor team there. um,
yeah.
Minnesota, I think that was one of the teams you said to keep an eye on. Didn't really get much
Mhm.
there. Duke continuing their hot streak. Washington State continuing to prove people wrong. UCLA 59-7, and Iowa 41-10. So
Yeah. I'll be honest, this is something I never thought I would ever say. That game, November 11th, Duke, North Carolina, I'm excited for it. That
yeah,
could be a two top 25 team battle. which I never thought would happen. I truly didn't think we would ever see the day that the ACC would have two legitimate guys that are going at it.
Especially basketball rivals on the court, now on the football field. So North Carolina's
Yeah,
been on a steady pace upward. So
yeah, both and Duke. Duke
hmm
has been playing
hmm
really well too. So, sorry. Anyway, that's a tangent.
um, do you have any noticeable upcoming matchups next week? I mean, I think Michigan Rutgers is going to be a good game. Um, I don't think Rutgers is
Mhm.
as bad as people are making out to be. Florida State and
Mhm.
Clemson, that might be an interesting one. That might be an interesting one.
Yeah. Well,
Obviously,
there's a lot of top 25
oh yeah, there
games.
is. Holy, obviously
Yeah, I mean
Colorado, Oregon,
that's going to be
Utah,
good. Yep.
UCLA. Um,
Alabama Old Miss is the one that I think everybody has their eye on. We've seen Alabama waver. I mean, fans are frustrated at this point. You've seen them get up and leave. And to be honest, I had mixed feelings about it. I think they're coming to terms with the fact that their dynasty is starting to have a bow wrapped up on it. I think Nick Saban is showing he's at the end of his coaching career, and you're looking at an Alabama team that we don't know they're even going to be ranked in the top 25 at the end of this season. They have a test ahead of them, and Old Miss, I think they're hungry, and they've had their number for many years. And a lot of these teams on the rest of their schedule, I mean Tennessee, LSU, yeah, those guys they haven't forgotten how bad Alabama's beaten them, and they're hungry.
I will see. I mean, LSU did beat them last year, I believe. So I don't know if that hunger
Mhm.
still lingers in there for them. I would be
Mhm.
surprised if Bama beats Ole Miss. I think that's an upset, to be honest with you. If Bama beats
Bama
Ole
beating
Miss,
Ole Miss.
yes, it's an upset. I think. I don't know why
Yeah.
they have Alabama at 7 over. Um, Ole Miss is looking really good, and I think that's an upset if Bama wins. I know statistically by rankings it's not, but have we seen
Mhm.
of Bama in the last 2 weeks? I think that's an upset if they win.
Mhm.
Um, and you
I
got
agree.
Oregon State, Washington State. I'm going for Washington State. I think they looked a better team. Um,
Yeah.
I haven't really
What about
heard much about them, but
Oh, there's two night games that I am stoked for. The Ohio State Notre Dame game and Iowa Penn State.
I think Ohio State's going to be a blowout. I think.
Alabama,
I think
have you
we've seen this from Notre Dame. We saw we saw it in the championship game many years back when it was still the BCS number one
I'm
ranked at
not
the time, and they got destroyed by Trent Richardson and the Crimson time of old. And I think it's the same story here.
I'm not
Same
here to
story
be an
here.
advocate. I'm not here to be an advocate for their defense. Their offense has not scored less than 41 points this season.
It's Ohio State though.
I get that.
It's Ohio
I get
State.
that.
They have Marvin
Yeah, but
Harrison Jr. They have Marvin Harrison Jr.
I know, but Ohio State hasn't been playing, days of old. We're not seeing them blow teams out every single game by 21
Hey,
points. They
Michigan
played,
doesn't either. Michigan doesn't either.
you know, I don't
I
know.
think you're overlooking
I don't
Ohio
know.
State on this one, bud.
I don't think
But
so.
we'll see.
I
We'll see.
I'm gonna say final score 35-28. And I'm gonna take Ohio State. I think you're right, but I don't think Notre Dame is going anywhere. I think they are going to continue to be resilient. They have shown that they can play ball.
I'm gonna say 42-21. Ohio
Really?
State. Yeah.
That's a hot take.
I think Ohio State's just that good. I mean,
All right.
I think and Penn
You
State,
heard it here
Iowa.
first.
That's Iowa. They kind of been grinding towards that Purdue type of upsets where they just upset random people at random moments. Maybe this will be it. And Penn State has been known to lose these type of games in the past, but maybe it's this
Mhm.
year. Maybe Penn State proves people wrong. I think it'll be a close
Yeah.
game. They have it at Penn State 14 and a half points. So um,
Mhm.
I think it'll be like a 20. I think it'll be a 35, like 31 type of score.
Mhm.
I think that'd be close.
Yeah. Well, you got Baylor Bears playing Texas too
Texas.
that night.
And
That's going to be Allen.
I think people
This
are
is
going to overlook Baylor, and I think maybe that's what you're going to say. I think
yeah,
Baylor brings
yeah,
it. I think Baylor brings it. They have nothing to
yeah.
lose. They have nothing to lose.
No,
Absolutely nothing. They have 2 losses. They're not going to get to the national championship, but hey, take someone
they
out. Take them someone out with you. So I think this might be a
they can
trap
wreck
game.
someone's season.
I think this is a
Yeah,
trap game
well,
for Texas. So
yeah, yeah. Well, and speaking of teams with nothing to lose, how about ASU playing USC? How do you think that game's going now?
blowout.
That's that's a rivalry game.
Blowout. I
I
don't
mean,
care. Blowout.
you don't think it's a Colorado State situation?
Hey man, you didn't care that was a rivalry game. You're trying. I mean, I'm not gonna care
Oh,
about this either. So
you know, I honestly thought they were going to beat them by more than that. But that's what I'm saying. Like this is Ellen. This is where this year is starting to prove that I think we're starting to see the falling of dynasties with the transfer portal. I think we are starting to see teams that ran away with it, and where we've seen teams where it was consistently the same 3 teams in rotation in the college football playoffs. I don't think you have that same road paved ahead of you. I think you are seeing any team in the top 10 can waver and falter. And we haven't seen that type of unprecedented football in the last 15 years. I mean, it was the early 2000s, mid 2000s before we've seen football like this, where teams can come up and play with anybody. Ohio State has always been a dominant program, but Indiana showed that, maybe 23-3 isn't, the most favorable score, but Indiana, they're not a top tier team. They're not top of the league. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You've seen by so many different games this week that any team can be tested.
right. I mean, all these top tens are proving their own case. Like Washington's been blowing out people. USC obviously doing their job. We've wait and see what their defense does against a top tier opponent, but because I'm not worried about Caleb Williams at all. So, and segueing into that, you want to start with your top 4 teams, or should I?
You go ahead.
Okay, obviously my number one's Georgia. Ain't no surprise. Yes, they had a little. I wouldn't say even a scare. It's just like it's a little bump in the road. Yeah, I understand it's South Carolina and they're not the most impressive, but until they lose, win close, win big, you gotta beat them. If they haven't been beaten yet, they're number 1. Number 2, unchanged again, Michigan, showing that they can still run the ball. A little bit of a weird situation passing wise with McCarthy in that first half, but they cleaned it up. Now my 3 and 4 teams, new teams since last week. Last week I had Florida State at number 3 and USC at number 4. Okay, I guess there's only one new team. My bad. But my number 3 is I'll start with number 4. Number 4 is the currently number 3 ranked Texas. Yes, they beat Bama, but hindsight, it's 2020. Maybe Bama isn't as good as we thought they were. Maybe they should have blown out Bama by 30. I don't know. But they're my number 4 just for that reason that they've played competition, at least one competition. And my number 3, Florida State fall out because obviously they won, but it was a very unconvincing win against an 18 penalty Boston College team. Number 3 is USC. I think they're better than Texas, even though they haven't beat someone as like a Bama. I still think they're better. Better quarterback.
To run that back.
Right. So
1 is Georgia. 2 is
Michigan.
3
USC.
is Texas.
3 is USC.
All 3 is USC.
And 4 Texas.
4 is Texas. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha. I like it.
They're the 4 teams that I think, as of if the season ended today, I think these are the 4 teams that go to the playoffs.
If we're going season ends today, I would say, my list would be different. However, I'm going to say my list is going to be based off of how we anticipate the year is going to finish.
Okay.
So my number 1, Michigan. I think they are really flexing on teams with the fact that they don't have a head coach. They don't have a
Yeah.
head coach in these games. I
Cheeseburger
don't think
incident.
I don't think that is appreciated enough. Yeah, Bowling Green came out and it was 6-7 at one point, and I think everybody likes to see an underdog play with any team, but they ran away with it, 31-6. And I think that happens from the speed bump of you don't have your coach to make those instant adjustments.
Right.
I think Harbaugh has enough under his belt to make those adjustments on site, and I think that's where he has really hit stride as a coach, and it's a shame we haven't gotten to see his coaching abilities yet this season.
Right. And it's improved
So,
from he's learned from many years when he's on the hot seat and he's gotten better,
yeah,
so
yeah,
good
yeah.
to see that.
So, yeah, yep. So, Michigan's number one. Number two, I like Texas. I
Mm.
that is really bitter to say, but I like Texas,
Right.
and I think that Ewers is showing he can play lights out. I think he is a serious contender for the Heisman. I mean, his stats are showing that he can be composed in the pocket. And in this last week against Wyoming, he put up, only 131 yards, but he put them up when he needed to, and he still had 2 touchdowns. And so I think he's showing he can make drives when he needs to, and he's composed. So I like Texas. Number three, still sticking with USC. I
Okay.
think that
We
they
agree on that then.
yeah, yeah, lights out. I think they're a dark horse. I think that they're not a team that's going to run away with many games. I think early season isn't a true tell of who they are as a team. But,
Right, right.
you know, when they're tested, I don't think that in this last week they had a bye week, so can't knock them for not losing. So
Right.
I like USC. I like Caleb Williams. I like what he's doing this season, and I think that they're bound for contention of a national title. Number four, you're not gonna like this.
Number 4.
That's FSU.
FSU. Okay. I don't disagree with it. I
At
don't
Florida
disagree.
State. Florida State. I think that they just because they had one bump in the road, you know, Boston College is a team that I think can play with anybody in the country, and I think they are one of the most underrated teams in the country right now. And so I know that's a hot take,
I don't know
but
about that, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, seriously, the way that they played and showed up and played, it was they made Florida State earn it. This is a team that they have not lost the game by more than 4 points. This is a team that they are literally the difference between them being 1-2 and being 3-0 is literally it's only a matter of 8 points. That's the difference of their entire record.
Okay. You gotta
So
win them. You gotta win them.
I know, and that's what a good team does. A good team goes down and they win when they have to, and I think that's why I'm keeping Florida State where they're at. I think that they showed that they can answer the call when they need to, and albeit they obviously didn't have their game plan together, but I think going forward they know where to move, and they know where to go,
That's
and
fair
we're seeing
enough.
a dynamic.
That's fair enough. I don't disagree with it. And I think a team that I would put at number 5, the 4-ish rank. I mean, we haven't seen them play anyone decent, but Washington's still looking way better than I thought they would. They're just blowing out teams. Again, it's early season. Gotta wait until the mid season, the late season. That's when things get interesting. And the end of the year for Washington, they play USC, Utah, Oregon State, and Washington State. And they play Oregon mid-season.
That's going to be a
So,
test.
if they win all of them, we're talking national. I think we're talking the natty for them if they win all these games. But that's a
Yeah.
big
Well,
if. That is a big if.
can we throw a really hot take out there?
Go ahead.
Could this be the first year that we see somebody with a blemish on their record make the national championship game?
And you blemish, you mean like that one crucial loss or something like that, like one.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
we did see TCU do it.
Oh, sure.
because
Yep. Yep.
they did lose to Kansas State almost twice,
Sure.
but they did lose to Kansas State. But
Mm-hmm.
as we watched the worst national championship ever, I mean, they weren't up to the task. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I mean, TCU proved people wrong, so maybe there is someone with a
Yeah.
one-loss team that gets in. I mean, Ohio State almost did too. I wouldn't say
Mm-hmm.
it's a blemish to lose to a number 2 ranked Michigan, but they did get stomped out by Michigan at Ohio State, mind you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Well, and if we're going to do an honorable mention for the college football playoffs, I would say what I said from week one, Ohio State. I think
Okay.
that whoever wins that Michigan Ohio State game, that's who's going to the national championship. And it's kind of cool that we've seen that for the last few years, that rivalry within conference where they're playing within the Big Ten. And to have that decided to see who goes. It's almost like a playing game. So
Right. Last
I
year, and
like it.
we almost got the game. That's what's called the Ohio State Michigan game. If you didn't know, anyone was
Mhm.
watching the game. They could have had the game part 2 in the national champ. Imagine that, Michigan Ohio State. That would have been must watch TV. I mean,
Yeah.
much watch. I think it would have been way more interesting than what we got. But maybe
Yeah.
it happens again.
Well,
Maybe Michigan Ohio State gets in again. But I don't think we'll see that again. So
yeah. Yeah. We'll see. And so, I guess closing thoughts here. Alabama, where do you think they end the rest of the season?
I think they finish around that 15th rank mark, like they are now. I mean, I think we're just seeing the mid of pack type of team. I mean, until they get their quarterback situation, and I think it's more than just quarterbacks. I think their old line isn't as dominant as they used to be with the Henrys of the world, the Trent Richardsons of the world,
But they're
Mark
still
Ingram.
recruiting those guys.
I
They're
know, and
still
that's the weird
recruiting
thing.
them.
I think the Georgias of the world, the LSU's and Ole Miss, they're just better. I don't. It's just weird. Maybe they're just better. Just little things. Maybe the workout sessions are better, more hyped. I don't know. There's something going
Well,
on in Tuscaloosa that it's just not getting solved.
yeah. Well, and it's more so contrary of that. We have seen Alabama stave off complacency for so many years. We have seen Alabama come out and not be satisfied with national contention. They won a national titles, and that's what they went out and got. And for whatever reason, that culture shift is starting to happen, where we're starting to see more complacency within the team. And I don't know. I mean, it's like you said. It's hard to put your finger on one thing. I think I truly believe this could be Nick Saban's last year, and we could be witnessing the end of something special. We were very fortunate to see, and regardless of what happens, wish Nick Saban all the best. He's a class act through and through. So
Every Thursday night or every Thursday he's going to be on the McAfee show.
yeah,
So I mean,
and
and you know better than anyone. I love that. I don't love dominance like Tom Brady, just like anyone else. But for some reason, I gravitated to that Bama dominance, the 2010s, especially 2010s when I started watching more football as I grew older. It's just something clicked. I think it was because of the defense. I think that's why I like the defense and running. I mean, they
mhm,
still had AJ McCarron dishing out for four straight years as a starter, and Mac Jones. They were just fun to watch. But
mhm.
whether it's a culture change or maybe the recruits, yeah, they're getting high recruits. Maybe they just like, yeah, I'm at Bama now, so I don't have to try. It's like something is
Yeah,
weird. So
yeah. So tip the cap to Nick Saban what he's been able to do this last decade, last couple of decades. But I think that's unprecedented. We're seeing some changing of the tides,
yeah,
albeit.
just
So
kind of like how we saw with Brady last year. So
yeah, yeah. So last thing I'll ask you: you had to pick two guys, the
two
Heisman,
guys, oh Heisman,
two guys for the Heisman. Who you
right?
got on your Heisman watch? Who do you
Um,
have?
Caleb Williams, number one.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
And number two, Caleb Williams. I'm just kidding.
Can I put him on there a third time?
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen too many like Caleb Williams-esque type of players. I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough, to be honest with you. I don't know enough. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr., but he ain't like catching 200 yards a game or something. But yeah,
You don't like Michael Penix Jr.?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Washington's quarterback.
Oh yeah, he's balling, but against no names, kind of. So I don't know.
Well, and I think that's something that kind of got under my skin too. Is hearing Shadur's name thrown out there. It's like he hasn't notched big wins. He doesn't have his standing case. He doesn't have his resume built. You know.
Maybe
Like,
this
yeah,
Saturday. Maybe this Saturday. Maybe.
I guess we'll see.
Okay,
I guess we'll see.
You're gonna hear this a lot, but any game from here on out is gonna be a big Colorado highlight for the next whole year. Whole year guarantee. Whole year. We could see someone beat Georgia, but people are gonna talk about more about Colorado than Georgia losing. So. So.
Well, and everybody was throwing out Travis Hunter early too, but this is inevitably where he's sitting presently, and wish him a speedy recovery. Hope he's doing well. But that is the issue everybody was worried about coming in, is how long before he gets hurt. It's when you are out there with the best in the country
on both sides of the ball. On both
sides of the ball. It's not sustainable. And people will say it's a cheap shot. I mean, but regardless.
At the end of the day, yeah, football is a tough sport. These boys know, NFL players know what they signed up for. It sucks. I mean, we saw it with Tua last year with that concussion he had, and that debacle of how they handled it. Whether it was Tua's health or health trainer, like people around him, or Tua himself having that I want to play. You know how athletes are; they want to play. And when we've seen it with Mahomes, he got injured, but he wanted to be in the ball for his boys. So these guys struggle to say no, but I think that's a trait that needs young people, especially, need to understand that it's better for your long term than it is for, let's say, a game against UConn. Like, there are better days ahead of you. So,
yeah, I agree. So, if I had to pick two for the Heisman, Allen, one is Caleb Williams. I like Caleb Williams. I think it's hard to bet against him.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I'm going to take Ewers. I think that Ewers has played real well, and I'd like to see what he's going to do down the stretch. So a lot of football to play ahead. So
I think I think they'll get too high in the clouds, and I think they might lose one of these games in the next few weeks. So
they are infamous for that.
We'll see.
Maybe
it's a change. Maybe we're seeing a change. So
yeah. Well, and I think it's about time they put a stamp on it. And I think that Texas of days of old, it was that complacency mentality of, oh, well, we're a 10-win team, and then they let it slip. I don't think that they're on that same mission.
It looks different. Yeah, it looks different.
Yeah.
So
I think they are hungry from not being at the table for so many years. I think that they are chasing a title, and I guess we'll see.
Do you think it's title or bust for Texas this year?
I think that's their mentality. Are they a national championship team?
Who knows? Who knows? We don't know.
Week 3. Yeah, it's week 3. How do you know?
Yeah.
I would say that is the team's mentality. That's where their heart's at. That's what they're chasing.
That's a good mentality. So, yeah, it's good mentality.
Yeah. Anyway.
Exciting stuff happening, especially this week. And the next coming weeks, we're getting to that part of college football where every win matters, every night matters. And Monday Night Football tonight. Got Steelers, Browns later. That's the second game. And then Saints and Panthers. So, Carr versus Bryce Young, the young buck.
Should be fun. So, we're starting to get into some good games. Ones you're going to want to watch all the way down to the wire. So,
Browns might be a dark horse this year. Maybe. Their defense looks good as not as great as the Cowboys or Niners, but they're up there. Myles Garrett. So
Yeah.
and hopefully for Steelers, I mean they look great in preseason, but their first game was just abysmal. But you did go against Brock Purdy and the Niners, so
Well,
you
any
want
given
to.
Sunday.
Yep, everything
Or
is
any given
Sunday.
Monday.
So,
Yeah.
and for some reasons, fans think if you lose to a or even a close game against a bad team, that makes you bad. I don't understand that logic. I never did understand that logic. So, fans be fans. So,
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate it, man. And I guess we'll see you back here week 4.
yeah, it was a fun day, fun week. So, hope to see you
Was.
guys next week. So, later.
Later.